Hi, it's Kayla. Welcome to my channel. It is officially October and I could not be happier. I am so excited that it's finally fall. Fall might even be my favorite season. I don't know. I really love summer too, but fall is so cozy. There's just something magical about the fall time. I just love it. Even though here in Arizona, it is actually 100 degrees outside, but I don't care. It is October, it is fall time, and I am clearly so ready for it, given that I'm wearing a turtleneck sweater in 100-degree heat. But I am not going to let the fact that it's 100 degrees outside damper my excitement for fall. So sweater, check. Fall is also the most perfect time of the year for reading. Obviously any time of the year is great for reading, but the fall time is just peak reading, cozy, sweater, coffee drink, rainy day season. Anyways, enough with my rambling. It is October and I'm very excited to be picking out my October TBR. And today I'm going to be using my trusty TBR jar. I have only used the TBR jar once before, but it did not disappoint me. So I'm very excited to be using the TBR jar again. We're going to be pulling some prompts, and based on those prompts, it's going to help me choose my books for the month of October. I think I'm going to end up choosing maybe 6 or 7 prompts from here, and then maybe pick like 1 or 2 books on my own that I just personally want to read if they don't already get picked using the prompt, if that makes sense. But anyways, as I've said 1,000 times at this point, I'm very excited. Let's get started. I really should not be as excited to pick out TBR jar prompts, but I am. I'm so excited. All right, let's get our first prompt. Oh, I accidentally got 2. The first prompt is one-word title. All right, I feel like I have quite a few options on my bookshelves that could work for that. Let me grab some books and we will pick one that's one-word title. All right, so I have grabbed some books that that have a one-word title. So we have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley as our first option. We have Twilight by Stephanie Meyer, which is such a throwback book. And we have Verity by Colleen Hoover. Honestly, I kind of want to read all 3 of these books in the month of October because they're all giving very much like spooky October fall vibes, but I'm also not going to do that to myself, so I am only going to pick one. And I think the one, I don't think I'm going to read Verity. I do want to read Verity at some point, especially this fall season. I think it would be a great fall book, but I'm just leaning a little bit more towards these, so I don't think I'm going to go with Verity. So it's between Frankenstein and Twilight. Twilight I read way back when the frenzy of the movies and everything was happening, when I was like a preteen and probably shouldn't have been reading the books, but I definitely did, and I don't really remember very much from them. I mean, I remember what happens like from the movies and everything, but I don't remember the experience of reading it, so it would pretty much be like reading it for the very first time. It definitely is very fall vibes, so I do want to read this, but I think I'm actually going to go with Frankenstein. It's obviously so iconic and I've never read the book before, but I think my sister has and I think she really liked it, so we're gonna be reading a very Halloween classic, Frankenstein, for the month of October. So this is our first pick. Very spooky, very excited. All right, time to pick our next prompt. I'm gonna shake it up actually a little bit, make sure we get a good one. Okay, we've got one. And the second prompt is fantasy. Ooh, okay, that's a great one. Fantasy is maybe my favorite genre. I also love romance, especially like romantasy. If you take fantasy and romance, romantasy, that is actually probably my favorite. But I think on my TBR shelf, I have quite a few books that are fantasy that I've been wanting to read, so I'm gonna go grab a few options. All right, so I have pulled lots of options for the month of October for fantasy. The first one we have is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Still have not read, and I feel like every other person on the planet has read at this point. And then I also grabbed Twilight again because I feel like that could also work because Twilight is fantasy for sure. So Twilight is another option. And I also grabbed the 2 books out of the Throne of Glass series that I have. I have not read Throne of Glass before. I've been dying to start this series and actually get into it, and I especially want to get to it this fall season. But the dilemma that I've been in is I don't know which one to start with because I've heard very conflicting opinions about which book to start with. A lot of people say to start with the first one, Throne of Glass, and then I've also heard the opinion to start with Assassin's Blade, which is like a prequel, I think. It talks about like the main character before the events of the first book. So I've been very confused on which book to actually start with, and I know that people have very strong opinions about which one you should start with. So I honestly, when I do start this, I do think I'm gonna start with Assassin's Blade just from what I've heard. Please don't be mad at me if you've read the series and you think that that's the wrong choice, but I just feel like Assassin's Blade is kind of where I'm leaning towards, but I don't know if I'm gonna be reading it in the month of October. I do really want to get around to it, so I might end up choosing this. I don't think I'm going to read Fourth Wing. I do want to get to this as well. I've definitely been getting into more fantasy lately. I've always loved fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter are my favorites from my childhood and are still my favorites to this day. But other than that, I haven't read a ton of fantasy. So I've been trying to get a little bit more into it. I read Powerless this past summer, well, the first two, and I absolutely love that. That's definitely more romantasy than it is like strictly fantasy. There's a lot of romance in it, but I've been trying to get into more fantasy. I just don't think Fourth Wing is going to be what I pick for the month of October. It's been on my shelf for a while and it's been very, very popular for years at this point. I know that the second one is already out and people also love it, so eventually I will get to Fourth Wing, but today is just not that day. I'm definitely between starting the Throne of Glass series or Twilight, but I actually think I'm gonna go with Twilight just because it's so like nostalgic, spooky vibes. I feel like this would be perfect to read in the month of October, and I have been wanting to get around to it. I also just feel like it's gonna be so fun to read it as an adult because the first time that I read it, I was obviously like 12 years old, so we shall see. But I think this is going to be the second book for the month of October, or second book on the TBR, Twilight, and eventually I will get around to Throne of Glass, hopefully very soon. Maybe I'll pick one of these for like my own personal pick for the month. But anyways, time for the third prompt. All right, this is our prompt for October. What was I just saying? Romantasy. Romantasy is the third prompt for the month of October. I am not mad about that at all because, as I just said, romantasy is probably my favorite genre. So let me grab some options. I think I have a few different things that could qualify as romantasy, and we will pick out the third book for October. I also feel like that's super ironic given that I just picked Twilight, which is arguably like the most romantasy you could get. So I mean, it's definitely its own kind of romantasy, but it's romantasy. All right, so we have some options for romantasy, especially in the fall season. I feel like fantasy is such a great genre to read. Like fall and fantasy they just go together. But anyways, the books that I pulled are Powerful by Lauren Roberts, which if you don't know is a little novella from the Powerless trilogy series, which I became quickly obsessed with this past summer when I read it, as I said. But this is the little novella that is about the character Adina, who is in the first Powerless book. She's the main character's like best friend. But I don't think I'm gonna read Powerful in the month of October just because I'm trying to pace myself, because the third one in the series of Powerless doesn't come out until I think April of next year. So I'm trying to pace myself. I might read this in a few months and then patiently wait for Fearless to come out. I'm so excited, so invested in the characters, and I just love Powerless. So I'm gonna pace myself. I won't read this month, but I am excited to dive back into the world maybe like 2-3 months down the line. So not right now. The next one I grabbed is Baron and Luthien by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien is probably my favorite author of all time. He wrote Lord of the Rings, if you don't know. I'm currently trying to read all of his Middle-earth books, which is gonna take me absolutely forever. I don't even own all of them. I have an entire shelf dedicated to Tolkien. I've read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but I'm trying to go through all his other works, including this one, which is Baron and Luthien, which I'm technically counting as romantasy, even though it's not like romantasy in the like typical modern sense. This is more of fairy tale mixed with fantasy, and there is a romance element because it is a romantic story about Baron and Luthien, which are very famous, iconic characters. If you know Middle-earth and if you're a big Lord of the Rings fan, then you would probably have heard of Baron and Luthien. But I've been wanting to read this, but I think the book I'm actually going to go with is, are we surprised? Assassin's Blade, because it is technically a romantasy series. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Throne of Glass is a romantasy series. And please don't get mad at me, but I'm going to be starting with Assassin's Blade just because I feel like from what I've read, what I've seen, people have recommended to start with this one. Other people have recommended to start with this one, but I think, I don't know, I'm just for some reason feeling like I want to start with this one. So Assassin's Blade is going to be is that our third book? Yeah, the third pick for the month of October. I'm honestly so excited to start the Throne of Glass series. I'm in need of a new fantasy series. All right, let's grab our fourth prompt. I feel like I'm gonna try to get ones from the bottom because I feel like all I'm pulling is from the top. All right, for the fourth book, we have Published This Year. Interesting. All right, let me grab some options for books that were published this year. All right, so I've grabbed some books that can be options for published this year. So books that were published in 2024. The first one that we have is Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. I'm pretty sure this just came out. I had to get this book when I saw the cover of it online. Like, I was just like, that is the most fall looking book. It is so cute, and it also reminds me so much of something that would be like Gilmore Girls, and I am such a Gilmore Girls fan. I've always loved Gilmore Girls. I've watched it like my entire life. So Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice this is the first option, which is obviously, I'm pretty sure, a romance. I also grabbed The Story Collector by Evie Woods, which is actually a book that my sister picked out for me that she thought I would like. This is another option, and this also just looks so like fall vibes. I'm pretty sure, I think it takes place in a bookstore, or it has to do with books somehow. Obviously it's called The Story Collector. I also think it has like a time jump. I think it's 100 years ago, and then it also has present day New York, which seems very fall. New York is such a fall city. So this is another option for the month of October. And then the third one is Wild Love by Elsie Silver from the Rose Hill series. I've actually never read an Elsie Silver book before. I know the Chestnut Springs, I think that's what it's called, is the other series that people really love. And this is another series that she has, the Rose Hill series. And as I said, I have never read a book from her, so I've been wanting to, but I don't think I'm gonna pick this one. I do want to read this one, but I don't think I want to read it in the month of October. I don't know. This is just not giving me the October fall vibes, which I probably shouldn't just base it off the fact that there's like a cute pink cover. But I just think I cannot, like, if my choices are between this and this, I'm obviously gonna go with this for the month of October. Like, that just makes more sense to me. So anyway, I think I'm going to go with Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice, because I have to read this in October. Like, if I don't, what am I doing, you know? So this is going to be the fourth book on the October TBR. Okay, I think I'm only going to pick maybe 2 more prompts, and then we'll see where we're at. They are always falling out. Every time I reach in here, they fall out. Okay, we've got the next one. For our 5th book, it is lowest rated on TBR. I'm gonna have to do some research because I need to find which book on my TBR has the lowest rating. I meant on like Goodreads because that's what I use. I use Goodreads. So I'm gonna go on Goodreads and try to find the lowest rated book on there. So I'll be back. All right, so I have done some research on Goodreads to try to figure out which ones on my shelves are the lowest rated. I didn't do an extensive search of every single book because that would have taken me absolutely forever, but I did do my little TBR shelf right here, and I think based on what my research on Goodreads has found is that my 2 lowest are The X-Hex by Erin Sterling, which has 3.49 stars, and then the other one is Beautiful Criminals by Eric Tipton and Susanna Rosenbaum, which has, I think, 3.22 stars, because everything else on my shelf has 4 stars and above, which I guess is a good thing. It means that I have pretty good books on my shelf based on Goodreads ratings. But anyways, we have The X-Hex and we have Beautiful Criminals, and is it really going to be a surprise which one of these I pick for the month of October? I'm definitely going to go with The X-Hex by Erin Sterling. I've been wanting to read this. I think it's just like a cute little witchy romance book. I actually meant to read this last October and I just never got around to it. The cover is also so pretty, so on point for the month of October. So I'm very excited. I think this is going to be the 5th book, is it? Yeah, the 5th book for our October TBR. All right, so I think I'm only going to pull 1 more prompt from the TBR jar. I feel like 6 is a pretty good amount, and then I might pick maybe 1 or 2 that I just personally have been wanting to read. So let's get our very last prompt from the TBR jar. Whoa, and they're falling out again. All right, so the very last prompt for the month of October is pick a color. All right, so when I wrote this prompt, I think what I meant was to do like a color wheel, like pull up a wheel online, and whatever color it lands on, I need to pick a book that is that color. So that should be pretty interesting. I feel like I don't have the most colorful of books on my bookshelves, but we'll see. But let me look up a wheel online and then we will see what color we get. All right, so I have found a color wheel online and I'm just going to spin it and we'll see what color I get, and then I have to pick a book that is that color. So we'll see. Hopefully we get a good one. Spin it. Oh my god, that could not be more perfect. I swear I did not do anything to get that. Orange for October. We got orange for October. That could not be more perfect. All right, so I'm going to go find an orange book on the shelves and see what we get for the month of October. That could not have gone better for the month of October. All right, so I've grabbed some books that are very orange and we'll see which one I pick. So we have The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, which obviously everyone has heard of Hemingway. So I've never actually read a Hemingway book, but this is an option. We also have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Coelho. And I've had this on my shelf since January of this year, and I meant to read it in January and I just never did. So this is an option. We also have The Martian by Andy Weir, which is another one that has been on my shelf for so long. This has probably been on my shelf for like 7 years at this point. I remember seeing the movie in the theater and I loved the movie. I'm a very big fan of space and NASA and everything having to do with that. So I really want to know how close the book is to what they ended up doing in the movie. Maybe I should read this in the month of October. I don't think I want to read The Sun Also Rises. I do eventually want to read this, but just not this month. I'm just not in the mood for that. So I think we're between The Martian and The Alchemist. I honestly should probably read The Martian because it's been on my shelf shelf for the longest time. This one's shorter and I feel like I already have a lot of books to read. You know what? I think I'm gonna go with The Martian. I need to get it off of my list, off of my shelves. I'm gonna finally read The Martian in the month of October. So hopefully I enjoy it. So The Martian will be the 6th and final pick from the TBR jar for the month of October. But like I said, I also think I'm gonna pick maybe 1 or 2 books that I just personally really want to read. All right, so the last 2 books that aren't from the TBR jar prompts, but are ones that I am going to try to read in the month of October are Daydream, which I've already read about 75% of this book. I'm almost done with it. I just didn't finish this in the month of September, so it was kind of getting carried over to the month of October. So Daydream is going to be the 7th. Is that the 7th book? Yeah, I think the 7th book on the October TBR. And the last book that I'm going to try to read in the month of October is going to be Verity by Colleen Hoover. I just feel like this is very like thriller, psychological, kind of spooky situation. I don't actually know very much of what it's about, but I know that a lot of people really love this one by her. Verity is going to be the final book for the October TBR. I clearly have a lot of reading to do in the month of October, but I will quickly recap the books that are on the October TBR. So we have Verity, Daydream, The Martian, The Ex-Hex, Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice, The Assassin's Blade, Twilight, and last but not least, Frankenstein. I feel like there's a really good mix in here. We've got fantasy, we've got romance, we've got thriller, we've got a lot of options here. So I'm very excited to start reading the books on the October TBR. Hopefully I get around to reading all of these. I would love to be able to check off all of them off of my TBR for the month. If you have read any of the books that I mentioned, definitely let me know what your thoughts are. Spoiler free, please don't give anything away, obviously because I haven't read them. But let me know in the comments which ones you like, what your favorites are, which ones you don't like if you have read them. But I hope that you enjoyed watching. I definitely plan on doing more TBR videos in the future, so definitely subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on that. And I hope that you have a great fall, a great October, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.